Hello everyone, welcome to World Cricket Chat. I am Shruti Chopra and with me is our cricket analyst Suneer Chowdhary. But we also have a very special guest with us, sports anchor and writer Nishad Pai Vaidya. Hi Suneer and welcome Nishad.
Yes, thank you so much. It's great to be on World Cricket Chat as usual with you and Suneer.
Hi Shruti, hi Nishad, how are you guys?
Doing very well. Now let's get started. Today we preview the upcoming series between India and Australia. They play 4 test matches against each other starting from the 23rd of this month. India have had an unbeaten home run so far, winning 8 of their 9 test matches, with one being a draw against England, whereas Australia's recent test form has been shaky. They were crushed in Sri Lanka and they lost to South Africa at home, but managed to pull things back with a win against Pakistan. India would like their dream run to continue, and Australia dreams of an unexpected win. Suneer, starting with you, Stephen Smith recently said, "You probably learn more from losing games than you do from winning them." And from the Australian perspective, you would hope they have learnt enough from their last 3 tours in which they didn't win a single game. Do you think they could at least sneak in 1 or maybe 2 victories this series?
Well, I hope they learned something from the last 3 series in India, where I think their record is 8-0. They've lost 8 matches out of the 10 that have been played. But when you're looking at a battle between a number 1 and a number 2 test sides in the world, it is quite possible that Australia could surprise a lot of us and win a test match. Ganguly has already said that we're looking at a 4-0 scoreline in favor of India. But India not only start favourites to win this series, but also to win it convincingly, I think. The one thing that is stopping India from a complete whitewash, a 4-0 scoreline, I think, is the weather. Dharamshala is a place where you can expect rains. We've seen rains in Bangalore, unseasonal rains in Bangalore as well. But more importantly, it could be the pitches. Even if the curators roll out the kind of surfaces that were on display during the England series, the pitches, they were very flat in 4 of the 5 test matches. I think India should still win the series, but it enhances Australia's chance of winning a game or two, and something they might find difficult on hardcore turners, as was the case in Sri Lanka earlier in 2016.
So, Nishad, you think Australia have the spunk to test India?
Yes, Australia have some big names in that side. Look at David Warner and Stephen Smith. And remember, a lot of them come here to India to play the IPL. Although that's the shortest format of the game, they do take back valuable lessons. They are very familiar with the conditions here, not just on the field, but even off the field. It's like a second home for them. So that comfort level is sort of there. Now you've got Warner, who's in great form, and then there is Stephen Smith. Remember back in 2013, things changed for him here because he was picked for the Mohali test and hasn't looked back since. So yes, Australia will be competitive, but still it's an uphill task for them.
Continuing with you, Nishad, Glenn Maxwell won't be sledging Virat Kohli, but he is hoping the team will manage to trigger doubt in him. Aren't these mind games already, where you're attempting to create doubt without explicitly doing it?
Yes, it's always been the flavor, right, for India and Australia contest because it starts with verbal volleys and then it spills into the field. But now that they've realized that it may not work with someone like a Virat Kohli, probably when he was very young and had gone to Australia for the first time, they may have gotten under his skin during his first test century. But now he's matured, he's leading India, and if anything, such verbal volleys are only going to fuel the fire in him. So probably Australia will be a little bit more cautious than usual. But remember, India will know that under their fiery captain, that they can put pressure on the Australians.
Suneer, Nishad doesn't believe that Virat Kohli will be troubled by this. What are your thoughts on these mind games?
I agree with Nishad there. Totally agree with Nishad. He was going to be dropped in that series. MS Dhoni protected that spot of his in that test series, and he went on to score that century. But more importantly, that was also the series in which the crowd got under the skin of Virat Kohli. There was that middle finger showing incident, which was caught by a few photographers. And he went on to do whatever he went on to do after that. He's become one of the best, if not the best, batsman in the world. And haven't we heard that before? Even before any India-Australia series begins, there are talks of sledging, mind games, mental disintegration, as Steve Waugh has almost every time put it, and whatnot. Indian team before the sort of Ganguly era, before he took over as a skipper of the side, were prone to falling away at the mere mention of such tactics, especially when touring Australia. But this is a different generation and a different team under a captain who possesses mental toughness and some. Look, recently Steve Waugh called Ravichandran Ashwin the Don Bradman of bowling. I would say Kohli is the Steve Waugh of mental toughness in this day and age. He might undergo a poor run of form one day, and I think that is justifiable given the way he's performed over the last couple of years. But like we saw what happened after the England series, his mental toughness will help him come out of that run of form quicker than most of his peers. And by that extension, I doubt that these sledging tactics will work too much on someone like Kohli. Shruti?
Sunir, spin has got the better of Australia on many occasions, but their most recent series in Asia versus Sri Lanka was a painful experience for them. They lost 3-0. Do you feel they'll manage to be more resilient in India than they were 6 months ago?
Look, one hopes that Australia would have learned a lot from that series. To be fair to Australia, in that series, they had their chances to win it. One of the test matches, if not two, they could have pushed Sri Lanka in two of those test matches for sure. In the first test match, they bowled Sri Lanka out for 117, took a lead of 86 runs, and then had Sri Lanka down at 86 for 4 at one stage, which meant that they could have easily bowled them out with a lead of 100, chased down the 101, and taken a 1-0 lead in the series. And from then onwards, who knows, the momentum would have been with them and they would have gone on to win the series. But that did not happen. I think Kushal Mendis played a brilliant knock there and went on to score a century. And then there was a similar situation in the final test match as well. But what Australia would do well in this series in India is what England did not do in the 2015 series, and that is to grab their chances when they have it. And England did have their chances. It was just that India were more persistent and were able to take those chances away from England a lot more often, which means that Australia will need to overcome that and play well over a period of 4 or 5 days.
Nishad, there were major changes in the Aussie squad recently. Bit of a double-edged sword going into an away series with that much inexperience?
It's never easy actually coming to India and making your debut. Remember, since 1996, a lot of players have made their debuts in India, but not many have gone on to have successful careers in Test cricket for that matter. There was Brad Hogg who made his Test debut here. Then you had someone like a Paul Wilson who made his Test debut here again, Adam Dale. And of course, later on, you had Michael Clarke. He's the exception who scored a century on Test debut and finished as a great of Australian cricket. Then you had Moses Henriquez last time. So there are a lot of names like that. It's not easy when you're coming to India for the first time. And as many as 26 Australian players in history have played their last test matches in India. So that tells you something. This time, they've got Swepson, the spinner, and then they've got someone like a Renshaw, the opening batsman. There is a bit of talk about Sean Marsh playing ahead of Renshaw, and probably that may be the more preferred option, given the fact that Marsh has a lot of experience in Indian conditions. So yes, it could be a double-edged sword, but a gamble nevertheless that Australian cricket wanted to take.
And what do you think of these changes, Suneer?
Well, interesting that Nishad says what he has just said, because we look at the tour match that is on right now, and the Australian team has not gone with Usman Khwaja in the playing 11. They have chosen Sean Marsh and Matt Renshaw as opening the innings for Australia, which could mean one of the two things, that Usman Khwaja is a definite yes for the playing 11, and Marsh and Renshaw are probably fighting for the other spot. But I would say it's the other way around. I think Usman Khwaja might have been dropped from the first test match, and this is their batting lineup. Mitchell Starc and Josh Hazlewood have been rested for this tour game, but they are certainties in the playing 11. But when you talk about the batting order, I think Matt Renshaw and Sean Marsh will get a nod ahead of Khwaja. So that's something to look out for. They probably wanted Sean Marsh's experience in Asian conditions. He has a good average in Sri Lanka, not played a test match in India, I think, but a good average in Sri Lanka. But when you talk about the squad, I think these changes were coming from a while, and that series defeat in Sri Lanka could have led to those changes, but the selectors decided to treat it as a one-off. You do lose a series or two when you're touring abroad. But when Australia went 2-0 down South Africa as well, they were left with no choices. So rather have someone new and inexperienced and build their careers, whether it's at home or going to Asia, or as opposed to have those same players tried over and over again at the age of 35, 36, and probably have no future with them. Fortunately for the selectors, the likes of Matt Renshaw, as Nishad said, who will be opening the innings with David Warner, and Peter Hanscom, who took over from Adam Wojers and now averages 99.75 after 4 test matches, have taken to test cricket like duck to water. Different conditions in India, obviously, and it will be a huge transition to them to play in the subcontinent, but it cannot get any worse than what happened in Sri Lanka, I would say. So I would like to see if Australia go in with the leg spinner Mitchell Swepson or the left arm spinning all-rounder Ashton Agar in the lineup. For now, I think it would be Steve O'Keefe and Nathan Lyon taking up the bowling attack when it comes to spin. There's also a Glenn Maxwell in the squad, so how does he fit in? He's playing in this tour game again, so how does he fit in when it comes to the first test match, and the rest of the test matches remains to be seen.
Now on to India. Suneer, they go in with an unchanged squad for the first 2 tests. But who of those 16 would you put in the playing 11? There's a lot of talk of Kuldeep Yadav making it. Would that be a wise choice?
I think before Kuldeep Yadav, let's talk about the batting. And unless there are injuries, I have my doubts the Indian batting will be any different from what was on display in the Bangladesh Test match. When it comes to the bowling, I'm quite certain there'll be at least one change. Unless the surface is green and expected to bounce, I don't expect India to place 3 seamers in any of the test matches over the series. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar might have to sit out in that case. And the big question is who will make it to the playing 11 in his place. There's Jayant Yadav waiting to take back that third spinner slot after having recovered from his injury. And obviously there's the other Yadav, Kuldeep Yadav, as you said, who's a left-arm Chinaman bowler and a left field selection. I think just being a left-arm Chinaman bowler gives him a huge advantage. And I remember what Dutch Chinaman bowler Michael Rippen had told me when I was interviewing him last year. He said that as a Chinaman bowler, you don't need to practice a lot of variety because you already are different. What you need is a lot of control. And once you have that, well, it will be very difficult for most batsmen to pick you. So that's what Yadav would be looking at, Kuldeep Yadav would be looking at. That's what the team management will be looking at from him. I do not know whether he'll make it to the playing 11 immediately for this test match ahead of Jayant Yadav. Plus, I also think that the Indian selectors did watch that Sri Lanka series very closely, and they had a Chinaman bowler, Lakshan Sandakan, who bowled at the Aussies during that series last year, and he was pretty successful in the first test match for sure. And that is probably one of the reasons Kuldeep Yadav is in the team too. Whether he makes it to 11, we'll need to see. But they can unleash Kuldeep through the series, probably in the second or the third test match when the pitch demands so.
Let's see what happens with Yadav there. Nishad, do you see Virat Kohli shuffling his players around during the series?
Yes, I do, because Virat Kohli, if you see his captaincy, he hasn't gone into 2 successive test matches with the same lineup. So expect such changes from him from time to time. He'll read the conditions. He's unafraid to make those changes. So you just look at the England series for that matter. You know, India were winning. They started winning at Vizag, won at Mohali, Mumbai, and then Chennai. In all those games, Kohli had to look at the conditions, made a change. Jayant Yadav was brought in at Vizag. He stayed on till Mumbai. Of course, he had an injury later. But then India brought back someone like an Ishant Sharma. Bhuvaneshwar Kumar also got a run in that series. So they did shuffle them around, and that tells you about Virat Kohli's personality. He's ready to take those calls, and who knows, he may be in for something similar. In fact, I'm waiting for a time when Kohli plays 2 successive test matches with the same 11. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's move on to your predictions. What is it going to be, Nishad? Let's begin with you.
Okay, I'm not going for a 4-0, probably a 2-0 or a 3-0. I think one test match is going to be a drawn affair, and it's going to be a hard-fought game.
Great. And you, Suneer?
Something similar, not a 4-0 for sure. India will win the series, and if the weather remains good across all the 4 test matches, I'm going ahead with a 3-1 scoreline in favor of the hosts.
And why would you think Australia would be winning that one game?
I think it's a law of averages. It's high time India loses a game. They have been on a winning streak for some time. And if there is one team that can beat India, I think is Australia. despite the conditions and despite what we've seen of Australia. I would never ever underestimate a team like Australia. We've seen what has happened over the last 20-25 years. I mean, when Australia weren't winning in India, winning series in India, they were winning that one test match. Barring these last three series that you spoke about earlier, Shruti, there was a 98 series in which they won one test match. There was a 2001 series in which they started off by winning a test match and then lost those two. Then in 2004, they won the series 2-1 before losing the next three series. So Australia does have that outside chance of beating India in India, I think, Shruti.
Great. So Suneer believes Australia could sneak in one there and Nishad doesn't believe so. So that's it from us for today. Thank you, Nishad, for joining us and hope to have you back very soon. We will return with more insights into the series and the upcoming IPL auction. So watch this space and do subscribe to our channel and do follow us on Twitter @WorldCricChat. Bye-bye.